Huge headlines, an international murder trial, and at its center, a young American student, Amanda Knox. Guilty, or the victim of one of history's greatest misunderstandings. Let's pull back the curtain on this gripping story. As the first rays of sunlight slowly crept over the historic streets of Perugia, few could have predicted that this seemingly ordinary day was about to set in motion events that would change lives forever. Amanda Knox, then in her early 20s and spending time in Italy as an exchange student, began her morning immersed in what appeared to be her usual routine. The narrow corridors of the shared house echoed softly with her footsteps, hinting at nothing more than the start of a typical student day. Yet in hindsight, this quiet dawn was like a stage curtain about to rise on a gathering storm. That morning, Amanda moved about the kitchen, preparing a simple breakfast alongside her roommates. Official accounts describe her demeanor as calm, with no indications of anxiety or unusual behavior. She wore simple clothes, clutched her class notes, and sipped coffee while mentally reviewing her to-do list. Just another busy student rushing to keep pace with the day. Reflecting on what was to come, however, that very ordinariness seems almost ominous, a calm before the storm. From an outside perspective, Amanda was simply another young woman navigating the cobblestone streets of Perugia. The crisp autumn air filtered through the windows, signaling the start of a new day, one that would soon become a defining milestone in her life. Certain sources suggest her mood could shift between energetic and pensive, hinting at unspoken worries beneath the surface. But on that morning, if there were any forebodings of impending disaster, they lay hidden. Paper-thin walls separated everyday life from the extraordinary calamity that would soon unfold. Thus began the most pivotal 24 hours in Amanda Knox's life, quiet yet inexorably leading toward an irreversible turn of fate. As the sun rose higher, Perugia's bustling streets came alive with the daily hum of activity. Leaving behind the morning stillness, Amanda headed toward the university, weaving through the city's storied archways and winding alleys. Known for its rich medieval heritage, Perugia was as much a draw for tourists as it was a hub for students from around the world. Official records show that Amanda attended a few lectures that day, grabbed a quick bite at a local cafe, and appeared perfectly at ease to those around her. No one detected the faintest trace of the tension that was soon to descend. By mid-afternoon, a slight chill had settled over the city. Text messages and brief phone calls flickered on Amanda's cell phone, mundane slices of student life. Records confirm she stayed in contact with her boyfriend, Rafael Salcido, while it remains unclear whether she exchanged routine messages with her roommate, Meredith Kercher, or made plans for the evening. From the outside, everything seemed routine. Yet sometimes, the most dramatic of twists go unnoticed until they erupt in full force. Perhaps there was an unspoken unease lurking in the back of her mind, a subtle warning of deeper troubles ahead. As the day wore on, streetlights began to glow and elongated shadows stretched across ancient stone walls. Amanda likely turned her thoughts to trivial matters, class assignments, a weekend getaway she might have been planning, or the evening meal she'd share with friends. None of it betrayed any notion of the tragedy on the horizon. It was November 1st, 2007, just another Thursday, or so it appeared to everyone in Perugia. Time drifted forward, carrying the city toward a moment that would stand out starkly in the annals of true crime history. The wheels of fate were already in motion, waiting only for the clock to reach the precise hour when the unforeseen would forever shatter the veneer of normalcy. With evening settling in and Perugia cast in a warm glow of orange and crimson, Amanda's footsteps led her away from the university and possibly toward either her own apartment or Raphael's. Security camera footage suggests that around this time, she and Raphael were spotted together, reportedly stopping at a small supermarket to pick up a few groceries. Bags filled with basic food items in hand, the pair walked along narrow streets, appearing, to observers, like an ordinary couple focused on the routine tasks of the day. Whether they were brimming with laughter or weighed down by worries is hard to discern. From a distance, everything seemed normal. As evening deepened, the city's energy began to shift. Many students readied themselves for nightlife, while others chose the solace of dormitories and quiet apartments. The official narrative places Amanda at Raphael's place for part of the night, possibly sharing a meal and watching a movie. Later reports conflict regarding whether she returned to her own residence afterward or stayed away. Such discrepancies would become crucial in the legal proceedings that followed, casting a wide net of suspicion and speculation. Shadows grew longer, and silence began to settle over the ancient stone lanes. There is no definitive record of whether a creeping sense of unease took hold of Amanda's thoughts. Post-event interviews suggest that those in her circle did not perceive any overt tension that night. Yet one can imagine how a faint noise at the door, a seemingly insignificant rustle in the hallway, might have foreshadowed the catastrophe looming just beyond midnight. For the moment, though, time appeared to float serenely toward the next day. In that hush before the storm, fate was quietly drawing back the curtain on a tragedy that would soon claim global headlines. In the still of the night, even the faintest sound can echo like a thunderclap. Within the confines of that shared house on Via della Pergola, a muffled cry or eerie shuffle could have heralded the moment when fate itself seemed to snap its final thread. According to official findings, Meredith Kercher was brutally murdered in her own bedroom, with the autopsy confirming that a knife was used as the weapon. At the heart of this nightmarish scenario stood Amanda Knox, quickly swept into a whirlwind of suspicions and contradictions, her name soon to be scrutinized the world over. Authorities believe the crime occurred either late in the night or in the early morning hours, behind locked doors and drawn curtains. Witness statements provided only scattered impressions, while police reports stated that there was no sign of forced entry, a detail that set off a chain reaction of theories. Adding to the confusion were notable inconsistencies in Amanda's later statements. In imaginative retellings, one might envision echoing footsteps down a dim corridor or whispered dread in the shadowy corners of the flat. The tangible evidence, however, remained both stark and fragmentary. Traces of blood, a locked bedroom door, and a profound, haunting silence. No definitive eyewitness account exists for the precise moment of Meredith's killing, leaving only a collection of clues for investigators to stitch together. Fragmented forensic evidence and contradictory media reports gave birth to countless scenarios regarding Amanda's whereabouts at the pivotal hour. Still, one grim truth stands beyond dispute. Meredith Kercher lost her life in a devastating act of violence. When dawn finally broke, a scene of horror awaited authorities, one that would soon ignite a media firestorm and cast Amanda Knox under a relentless public spotlight. Morning broke with the wail of sirens, reverberating through the narrow streets of Perugia and summoning everyone from law enforcement to curious onlookers. At the modest house on Via della Pergola, journalists and first responders crowded together, piecing together the fragments of an unfolding nightmare. News outlets swiftly relayed the story of a young British student found dead under brutal circumstances, and speculation about who might be responsible spread like wildfire. Barely hours later, Amanda Knox's name was blazing across headlines. American student implicated in grisly murder, Erasmus exchange under suspicion, and similar sensationalist banners seemed to dominate every front page. Meanwhile, forensic teams combed the house for every shred of evidence. Police reports and official updates poured in, fueling an insatiable media machine desperate for any new detail. Italy's major newspapers flashed breaking news banners, while Amanda and her housemates were summoned for questioning. Discrepancies in Amanda's first statements only heightened the media frenzy. Rumors swirled about her demeanor, some observers calling her frantic and anxious, others describing her as disconcertingly composed. In the midst of it all, she stood center stage, catapulted overnight into a high-profile case that would captivate and divide the public for years to come. Television channels covered every angle of the investigation, from solemn press conferences to heated debates among so-called experts. Across Europe, the United States, and beyond, people found themselves riveted by the case of a young woman, far from home, entangled in the darkest kind of tragedy. Speculation and theories mushroomed. Was this a crime of passion, a random attack, or part of something more sinister? The world waited with bated breath for new revelations, even as the pressure on local authorities escalated. With each passing hour, curiosity morphed into collective anxiety, while the swirling storm of headlines showed no signs of abating. As the days turned to weeks, the criminal investigation grew increasingly intricate, and public opinion fractured into polarizing camps. What truly happened that night? Was Amanda Knox guilty, or was she another victim, caught in a maelstrom of legal oversights and sensational reporting? Television talk shows assembled panels of pundits, each offering expert opinions, while social media bristled with countless theories. Some pointed to the physical evidence, suggesting Amanda's involvement as indisputable. Others zeroed in on mismatched accounts and irregularities in the forensic process, highlighting what appeared to be glaring investigative flaws. Official reports confirmed that Meredith Kercher's bedroom was somewhat isolated, yet still connected to the rest of the flat. The presence of telling fingerprints, DNA traces on a knife, and conflicting testimonies were pieced together like a puzzle, though the resulting picture was far from clear. The case grew even more convoluted upon the discovery that Rudy Geed, who had a criminal past, was implicated in the crime. Public scrutiny intensified around every detail, pushing some to champion Amanda and Rafael Salcido as victims of a miscarriage of justice, while others remained convinced of their culpability. Questions lingered in the charged atmosphere. Was this a random tragedy or part of a broader conspiracy? Conjecture soared, from whispered suggestions of occult rituals to speculations about organized crime. In the end, Amanda Knox's legal odyssey oscillated between convictions and acquittals, ensuring the case became a global phenomenon, an emblem of how media and the justice system can collide with explosive consequences. Although a final exoneration would come years later, it failed to erase every doubt. To this day, the events of that fateful night continue to inspire debate, leaving many haunted by a single question: what really happened? And so, as we look back on Amanda Knox's last 24 hours before the world forever knew her name, a shroud of mystery and speculation still hangs in the air, unresolved, unsettling, and destined to endure.